Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and in this section, we're actually talking about diversity and inclusion. In studio, I've got two ladies, and that is Waithira Kabiru, who is the head of Media Futures at the EABL, and Faith Nkatha Gitonga, who is the Women on Boards Network board member. Thank you, ladies, for being part of this conversation. And I think, first off, we need to understand why we are having this conversation in the first place. Waithira, what does inclusion and diversity in the workplace mean for you?
So it means a lot of things. First thing, it's about people and the human capital that people bring into the organization. Everybody's different, so the whole diversity of thought is important. Inclusivity is not just about accepting, but making it part and parcel of what we do. So for us at EABL, inclusivity and diversity is a core part of what we want to do as part of our Society 2030, which is our sustainability program. And it's not just something that we have on, on our wall or PowerPoint. It's something that we live by every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you say you live by. So is this something that has been adopted recently?
So not recently. I mean, we've been working towards a more inclusive and diverse workforce over time. Right now, our workforce is 70% male, 30% female in EABL. Of course, we're making deliberate programs to increase that that balance. So it's so we want to be at 50-50, obviously, by 2025. So if you look at even when we start recruiting graduates, we look at the composition. Is it more diverse? Is it more balanced, 50-50? But one thing we are proud of in our leadership, this is now at the executive or at the board level, we do have a much better representation of women. As you do know that even our EABL CEO, who was appointed earlier this year in January, Jane Karuku, the first female woman CEO of EABL. So that was quite a great accomplishment. There are 4 other women board members, including our company secretary on the EABL board. So it's work in progress.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So Faith, let's bring you into this conversation. Yeah, First of all, for those that are hearing of the Women on Boards Network for the first time, what exactly is it? What is its mandate?
So the Women on Boards Network is a network of women, and what we do as a group is bring together women and train them on just aspects of boards and just being executives in leadership, yeah. And so this network was put together, just having at the back of our minds that this diversity and inclusion was not there at that point. If you look at statistics, we probably started out at around 12% in 2012, just in terms of number of women in boards or just diversity in boards. And so when we came together, when it was founded, we had in mind to just, bring women together, empower them, and just make sure they're ready. I don't know if you've heard stories of where you'll ask people, why don't you have a woman on the board? And they're like, where are these women? So we came together and said, okay, now we have women. And so we're able to also put together a database of these women so that if you're an organization and you're looking for women to sit on your board, then you know where to look. And it's women from all facets and all ages, because I think diversity is also age as well. And diversity is also, just different backgrounds. So it's no longer where it's just the company secretary, that perhaps is a woman. It's also that a chair could be a woman. The person chairing the finance committee could be a woman. So it's just creating diversity in that sense. And so that's how we came together. So we train these women, we empower them, we mentor these women. It's interesting that we take in women from age 12 going up. So we start preparing them from that point onwards, so that way, if tomorrow our board wants a young woman, who's 20-something, 30-something, you'd still be able to get that from our database as a network. Yeah.
Now, you said the question is where are the women, but the other question also is they are not equipped enough, and that's what you're actually trying to ensure, that they are equipped for the job. So what exactly do you instill in these women to ensure that they are at par?
I'll start by probably giving you a quick story. So there's once I was attending an interesting training, and during the training, it was some global trainer. He asks for us to write on some whiteboard quickly, like, any men we know that we'd put in a board if we were asked to put them on a board today. And so he writes down, the members of the training just quickly write down off your mind, easily. And I guess if I asked you today, you'd come up with 5-10 names of men very easily. Yeah. And when we were asked to come up with women, it's very common, like they fit in one hand, like just the 5 women who would easily be on boards, because it's the same women who go around all these boards. And so it's interesting that it's not even just training, because I think women are perhaps even already trained, they already have the skill and capability. It's probably just creating a platform where they can get branded properly and put on the forefront, so that, you know how you say people will speak about you when you're not there. So it's just probably training women, of course, on perhaps corporate governance and how to, you know, sit on that table and have a voice. But it's also just creating a platform where we can know these women are present, and train them how not to be a flower girl when you end up on that board, you know, to just have that proper voice. And when you come in, you don't sit at the back, that you sit at that front, you know, and you make sure that you're speaking, and how to handle just all these dynamics that come with boards. Because I think what they call the boys club, you know, I guess sort of trains these men. I don't know, you know. So for women, I think we are that girls club with Women on Boards Network, just being able to do that. And what we do is that we don't only get men to do this. We also, we don't only get women to do this. We call in men. So we have men who are part of the Women on Boards Network, and they train us as well, because the advantage men have had is that over the decades, they've been sitting on this board, so they have that experience. So they come and also train us, because women, we've not had that advantage. It's just beginning to get common. You know, I think, was it 2021, the statistics showed now Kenya is at 32%, which is fantastic. So we're catching on, you know. Yeah, and it's a complete culture shift, which is fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, definitely, Wadira, you work closely with the Women on Boards Network. How has that benefited you?
So interestingly, I also joined a board 2 years ago for an oil marketing company, which is predominantly a male-oriented sort of company. I'm the only woman on the board, a 20-year-old company.
Well done.
And thank God that the chairman and the board members woke up and said, you know what, we need some diversity in this board. And interesting what Nkatha was saying about sometimes we feel like we're not ready as women, but we're actually ready. So when I was invited for an interview to join that board, and I thought, I don't know anything about the oil and gas industry. Why would they have me? But guess what? They were not calling me as an expert in the oil and gas industry. They were calling me as a marketing professional and saying we need a marketing lens, and we also want diversity of thought. So I ended up sitting not just only on the business and development strategy committee, but also on the human resources committee, because they're like, you know, even from a workplace diversity, people diversity point of view, we want to hear your voice. So it's quite interesting that and I love what Women on Boards is doing, because we need that sort of support structure to ensure that we're getting onto those boards. The training is amazing, but recently what Women on Boards have started doing is also recognizing women who are doing great things on boards. So the recent awards that they had last week is, you know, it's great to show that recognition, what you're doing, and bringing some more visibility to women on boards, which is important.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned earlier that the ratio at EABL is 70-30?
In the workplace.
In the workplace.
Yes.
Okay, how has that translated to the women in leadership positions? Of course, the CEO is female. How about the rest?
Yeah, so it's 36% of the board is female, so 4 out of the 11 of the EABL board are women. And again, there's a deliberate effort to get that to 50% by 2025. And how the EABL leadership team is doing that is through a lot of mentorship, a lot of putting people in positions or opportunities to help grow them. I've been, you know, a recipient of that. I get a lot of mentorship from senior leaders, not just at EABL, but even Diageo globally, to help us get into those next positions. Being put on, say, special projects that help with your leadership skills, so that you have a pathway, a career progression into leadership, senior leadership positions, and possibly into the board as well. We're encouraged to take leadership positions in the industry. So for example, I sit on the Marketing Society of Kenya's board. I'm the corporate representative for EABL. So it's something that I was encouraged to do and given the support to do as well, besides my, you know, my day-to-day job.
Yes. Okay, now ladies, even as we talk about diversification, I hear you saying there's something unique that each, you know, person brings to the table. When we talk about women, especially now on boards, what is this uniqueness they bring to the table?
Wow, that's a very good question. You know, I'm in the tech space, yeah, and so it's also one of the main sectors where you hardly find women. And so it's interesting, like even for Cellulant, where I work, that it's easy for you to probably pick the men because, you know, if you're looking for engineers and the techies and stuff like that, you know, it's natural for you to just think men are the ones with this skill. But the interesting thing, when we all go to school and graduate, we get trained on the same thing, whether it's engineering or technology. But what you find different is that now women, you know, we are said to be a bit emotional, you know, but that sort of what they call emotional is actually a strength. You know, statistics show that emotional intelligence that women tend to have, or that seventh sense that women tend to have, has done wonders for performance in different organizations. It's actually been proven that just by getting diversity in these boards, that organizations who've done that have seen, you know, a spike in their performance. You know, women by nature are, you know, mothering in nature, and so perhaps able to pick talent better. You know, I was reading a Harvard Business Review, was it Harvard Business Review the other day, and it was talking about that mothering nature just helping pick out best talent, and succession plan for women is done better than by men. When you talk about things like mentoring and coaching in an organization, perhaps women are able to do that better. Look at during COVID, the countries that were led by women or had ministries being led by women, then we saw a difference just in terms of how, you know, the COVID situation was handled, how they were figuring out how the health sector will run and aspects like that. So not to say that men have no strengths, but it's just to say that, you know, God put us together differently, and we just need to be able to come together and complement each other. You know, not just decide that women should just sit in the kitchen, you know, but that we can be able to use the strengths that we have and how we've been wired to just, you know, propel our organizations. And I think the sad thing, if you allow me to say, is that women get into leadership, then we try to be like men. And I think that's even a worse crisis, you know. I think we should be women and lead with our femininity, you know, and because that in itself is our strength, you know, and if we lose that, then we're not doing anything for diversity, because then Faith will sit on a board, but I'm trying to be like the next man. Then again, we're just men in that board, you know, so I think that also should be talked about and dealt with as well. And even as we mentor women, you know, who are coming up, that we should be able to tell them that be proud of who you are as a woman and the strengths and aspects that come with you being a woman, even as you go up the ladder.
And Waithera, if you have these women we talk about with such skill sets in leadership, there's a trickle-down effect. How has this translated at EABL?
Yeah, so if you first of all look at the consumer behavior, or who makes decisions in the household. So 88% of household decisions are made by women. So how does that translate? I'm speaking now as a marketer. So how does that translate even in the communication or the advertisements you're putting out there? So we run a program called Progressive Portrayal of Gender in Media and Advertising and Entertainment. And when I say gender, I don't say progressive portrayal of women. I say of gender, both genders. Same thing she's talking about. Everybody has their role. So we all know we have a lot of unconscious biases, and they're unconscious. We're not conscious of them. And that leads to stereotyping. So if you look at how communication is done, if you look at old adverts, you'll always see the mom is the one washing the clothes in the kitchen. She's, you know, she's not a breadwinner. Yet she probably is. Or the man, the dad comes home and, you know, remember those old adverts? What was that saying to, you know, to our children, to our boys and our girls about the roles when they go into the workplace or when they go into schools? What was, you know, that becomes something, you know, a bias that we have and a stereotype. So we look at representation in even the creative that we do, and it's work in progress. It's something that we've just embarked on. But the other thing we look at is even where do we place that content that as advertisers, as brands, that we produce. So we look at things at progressive media placements. How does the media landscape look like? So we have what we're calling our media investment activism. So as EABL, we've said we've purposed 5% of all our media investment annually, starting this financial year, will go towards progressive portrayal of gender. And in media landscapes that are progressive. So we're starting with 5%. It's still a big chunk, but we want to increase it year on year. And we're also looking at even our creative agency partners, who's behind the camera Yeah, because that's the perspective and who is in front of the camera. We have very few women creative directors in Kenya. Why? Is it because of the way the workforce is? At some point as a woman, you're like, you know what? I don't want to even pursue anything higher than that. Maybe because of the work-life balance is not there. So then they tend to retreat. So we're talking to even our agency partners about that as well. Who's in front of the camera and who's behind the camera to show the perspective.
I love that. I really do. Seeing that we do this on a daily here. So tell me this, the impact of culture cannot be denied. And some of these unconscious biases we're talking about are pegged in cultural beliefs. How, you know, if you can train, give all these things to this woman, but if she does not change here, then really, you can easily lose out on what you're trying to achieve. How do you address this?
And I think it's a tricky balance. You know, when I think about it, I think about the home setting. And I think that's where it all begins, because I think the mindset is not just for the woman, because it has to also be for the man and the full ecosystem, so that this man is able to give the woman the opportunity. Because I could be ready in mind and ability, but if the man or the ecosystem around, or even the other woman, is not ready to pull up this other woman, then we lose. And so I think it's three things. It's how we are raising our children. You know, are we empowering our girls and, you know, disempowering our boy child as well? You know, for me, it's a mix, because I'm raising 3 boys, you know, so I have to make sure that, you know, that we don't empower these girls and they don't have good husbands and, you know, good men around them. So it has to be both ways. And so it starts in the home setting, that we make sure we're empowering this girl. And those are some of the cultures that perhaps are not so good, where the boys were taken to school, and if there's not enough school fees, the girl didn't go, you know. So then we need to make sure that those things are not happening, because they're still happening to date, you know, to just make sure that the girl is empowered in that home setting. And then secondly, when it comes to the workplace, we need to be able to mentor these girls. Statistics show, and I think it was the big 4, you know, the big auditing firms that a research was done a few years ago, where they said when it gets to a certain level in management, then the women start to drop off. Of course, because, you know, then you're beginning to have children, you know, you're getting married, and there are all these other aspects. So what are we doing about that? The women who've gone before us, you know, are we training these younger girls? Are we advising them on how, you know, to manage both work at home? We say it's not balanced, but just proper integration, so that you're present at home to raise the next generation, and you're also being able to be in the office. And then thirdly, now the corporate, you know, so what is the organization doing? Are we creating you know, a sort of environment that ensures these women can thrive, you know, because so many times we'll have like a room somewhere, you know, where you can express and do all these things, but perhaps to just tick a box. But are we coming up with policies? Are we setting up budgets to support women, you know, whether it would be training, proper coaching, you know, and just aspects that really ensure there's a complete culture shift. If we're doing just the small room and maybe have like a women network within the organization to just tick a box, it won't cut it. It has to be proper, intentional, you know, strategies to just ensure that these women are able to grow. Also because there's this, do I call it mindset, where people say women don't support women. Yeah. And so I met a lady, she was 65, and she said for the women that age, they worked so hard to get to where they got to. And so many women of that age are like, now Faith just comes in and thinks she'll just get it easy, you know, and so perhaps they find it harder to support the other woman. But I think sometimes we overthink it, so I'd call it a myth. You know, there are many women who are willing to support. So perhaps it's just a call to all of us on this table and out there to just, if you're doing well and God gives you that platform, pull up another 5 women, you know, pull up another 10 women if you can, you know, so that we make sure that that we are not up there by ourselves and we have no one else that we are supporting. Because the sad thing with the millennials is that you keep speaking to them and they're like, we have no mentors. You know, we have no one to look up to. And it's the same thing you were saying, you know, so we just sit here and we look like it's glam, but nobody knows the process it goes through. So then these younger girls do what? They look for shortcuts. You know, they look for easier ways to get to the top, but they don't know we actually have worked hard to get to where we are. And it's called for a lot of diligence, mistakes, you know. And so if we're not vulnerable enough to talk about what it's cost us to get there, then the next generation has nothing to look up to. So it's that full ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And at this point, it would be prudent to say, do not be fooled by the makeup behind the scenes.
So true.
Yeah, it would actually show how much hard work goes into this. So, Wadera, when we think about what she's saying, some of these roles that come naturally to us, for example, mothering and raising a family, EABL is big on this. Just some time back, you'd increased your maternity leave to 6 months and paternity leave to a month. How has that changed the culture of the company?
Yeah, so this actually decision was made since, it's been on since July 2019. And in our function in marketing, I've seen a few ladies benefit from it, where they do go for their 6-month maternity leave and come back to the same role. So that's also a trick. I once worked in an organization many years ago where we were of childbearing age and nobody was getting pregnant. We were married, nobody was getting pregnant. And the culture was so bad because there was that thing of, if I do go, when I come back, and that time it was, you know, just the 3 months, if I come back, will I still have my same role? Okay? So it's quite interesting that that setup has to be there. I personally have always I've been fortunate to take longer maternity leaves unpaid because I was able to, and I had a partner who supported me because I knew the importance of just being there with the children. With my firstborn, it didn't happen. I was back to work in, I don't know, 6 weeks, and I cried. I was like, this is not working for me. So I made sure anytime I moved forward, so that's some of the things you negotiate with your employer, like what are your terms and conditions on this? It's not always about the money. And so I think that has done a lot for the culture for us. It just gives you that space, even for the men. The fact that the men also have a month off to, you know, to support the family, the new family that has happened, is so critical. It's not your month off to go play golf every day. It's for you to be there. I think it's very important for the men to understand that as well.
All right. So even as Faith was saying, it's important to actually mentor these young girls, you know, so that at least these women can have somebody to pass on the baton to. EABL has a graduate management trainee program. How are you making this intentional enough to ensure that at least it also kind of builds up on these numbers that you would like to see in the company?
Yeah, so aside from our normal graduate management trainee program, which when they're coming in, we make sure there's a 50-50 gender balance, we also have a STEM program where we purposely go out and look for graduates in science, math, engineering, etc., and then bring them into the organization, just so that, because remember, we're in the manufacturing industry as well. What do our engineers look like? We're very proud that we have brewers who are female, brewers of, you know, the beer are female. In Tanzania, we have a line, 100% of the line is managed by women. In Uganda, we have another line, a spirits line, where 75% is managed by women. So we bring in the ladies through the STEM program. They get to spend a lot of time in different areas of the organization, of the plant. Then they also get partnered to mentors. I actually mentor one of these girls, and the other day we were having lunch, and she told me it's really opened up her eyes, other than her academic course, being in the organization and then meeting and interacting with so many different functions or jobs. She's actually opened up her mind and thinking, maybe I want to be a data scientist. You know, these roles that I've not even, these future roles, the ones that Faith is recruiting for now, you know, she's in the tech space. So it's really amazing. And then me being her mentor, I'm also learning from her because my background is not STEM. So I'm asking her questions around supply, around this, that helps me as a marketer. So it's a mutual beneficial. So I think, and to be honest, mentorship is not just the one-on-one engagement. Mentorship is also about giving access to knowledge or opportunities where one can learn. So one of the things we're also doing as EABL, we sponsored a podcast with the Marketing Society of Kenya, where I get to interview leaders in the field, in the marketing field. Now that's mentorship, because if you listen to that podcast, now you're learning from somebody else who has gone before, what their experience has been, their journey. That's mentorship. So I say that because a lot of times, I'm sure this happens to you, your inbox get flooded on LinkedIn, please be my mentor. But mentorship is not just the one-on-one engagement with someone. Mentorship is also the opportunities you have. You have podcasts, you have the knowledge out there is amazing to help you grow yourself as well.
So ladies, as we bring this conversation to a close, Faith, you talked about, and I'll take you back to these young girls because that's where the future lies. Apart from giving them or passing on this information, do you take them up for practical, experience, like go with you for a meeting or something like that, so that they understand who you are when you're actually called to the task?
I'll probably give 2 examples. So I have a group of 8 girls that I'm working with through life. So not just work, but even just personal life and, just all these things that happen, because, a woman is 360, right? So, and so yes, I'll work with them through different aspects, whether it's helping them understand how to run meetings and aspects like that. And then, of course, in the workplace, I mentioned I work for Cellulant. So we have, of course, the younger women who are just joining this whole tech space. And, they'll come up to you and they'll be like, how do you end up being a voice in this tech space? And one of the things I tell them is that you're probably even better placed than I am, because I don't have, I didn't study technology, just like she said, and they have, and they're techies, like they're real proper techies. And so I'm like, just get that voice and just be, just confident in yourself and know your worth. And then, of course, secondly, just become an expert in because, it's one thing to study it in school. Secondly, to just become an expert in it. And then thirdly, just figure out what your purpose is. Just go out there and find out, this is my line. This is what I want to do. Like one of the ladies I mentor, she wants to get into this whole virtual reality aspect and things like that. And I'm like, read about it, learn more about it. And then that way you can just fit into that space and grow in it. So it has to be, as leaders, in the action we take when we hire. Who are we hiring? Are we taking time to be intentional about that? It's easy sometimes to think in your human mind, let me hire this gentleman because maybe I'm sure they'll be here all the time, and all that. I remember the other day I interviewed a lady and she was expecting. And, in your human self, you're like, should I hire this lady, because she'll be gone for 3 months soon as she reports, and to go like, no, I'm going to hire her, and just tell her, I'm believing in you, despite, because this is just, it's all sickness.
It's temporary.
Exactly.
Yes, it's just a cycle, And by the way, she could get pregnant and have the baby and come back pregnant again, and that should still be fine. Let's just say that it should still be fine, because I could tell you my story and it's quite similar to that, and that should still be fine. And so it has to be that we make these things the norm. That it should even almost be disrespectful to ask if someone is pregnant, or that to become an issue, because that's my personal life. And as it's not up here, it's just happening here, like I'm okay here. And those are some of the things that we train in Women on Boards Network. And so, like for Cellulant, I'll give you an example. We've hired so many women when expecting. And this is the tech space where, you have the rotas that sometimes you're working at night and, and all these things. But you have to be able to believe in these women and just know that they have the ability. And what's surprising? These women will end up being so loyal to the organization, because they're like, Yani, when I needed a job the most, you gave me a job, then I'm sticking here, and I guess you need that as well in your employees. So it's just that full circle,
I hope somebody is listening to this, because it is vital, tried and tested, and clearly it works. Okay, so going forward, how do we ensure that diversity and inclusion, especially on boards and senior leadership, continues?
I think the voice of networks like Women on Boards Network need to be heard even more. And so thank you for allowing us to be here. Because I think if organizations know that there's networks like ours where you can come in and tell us, I'm looking for board members, and we're able to give you, just a few names that you can work with, it's fantastic. It's the first step. Secondly, it's courage, courage for Faith and Waithera when I'm interviewing or being interviewed, to be able to speak for these women's rights, I'll give you a quick example. You can imagine in the sort of role I'm in, how crazy it is and how hard it is to balance work and life, but I have an employer that allows me to be able to attend my children's things in school, or, if my child is unwell, you don't tell me, could the nanny take the child?
Yeah.
You actually let me take my child to hospital. It's not everywhere. We don't talk about it, but women actually really go through a lot. So just women being able to have the courage, if you're leading, to be able to allow for these opportunities. And if you're being led, to speak up and say, no, I genuinely need to leave and attend to my child who's unwell, And thirdly, I'll speak, and this could be controversial, but I'll speak on it because I think it's important. I think women also need to have the courage to be able to ensure that we are both present at home and at work, that we don't make excuses when we're given that opportunity at work. Yeah, so maybe I leave maternity leave and I come back to work and my boss tells me you can leave at 3 o'clock. Make sure the time that you're at work, that you properly bring your full self to the table. And I dare say at home, please be a present mom. Make breakfast once in a while. Ensure you're not there on your phone and still working. Be present for your spouse if you have one. Be present for your children if you have one. Be present to your larger family, because we are also dropping those balls. And so the future generation will suffer. So be present, both sides.
Both sides.
Yeah.
And of course, I cannot say goodbye without allowing Waithira to speak about the recently launched product that I saw had a master brewer who is a woman. Was that intentional? And where do you see this brand going forward?
And like we said, we're being very deliberate about the diversity in our organization in all functions, not just marketing is very women diverse, but even in the brewer section, like you said. So our master brewers, we have several who are women, and there's a program to ensure that they get to that level. And again, it's a journey. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's not been happening overnight. It's like brand building. And I dare mention, one of our brands, Tusker, that's turning 100 next year. To get to Tusker, the way Tusker's brand today, it's taken all these many years. But it's been very deliberate. Somebody asked me, why do you guys still spend money advertising Tusker? You have to build that brand every day. With inclusivity and diversity, we have to build that and work on it every single day. So when we're called on to forums like this, Faith and I were just talking earlier before we came in here, and we're saying, we're so busy, how long will this take? We have to make the time to come and talk about these issues, about these things, because that's the only way, if we're talking more about it, it becomes that something we're acting on in a deliberate way every single day. Yeah. So thank you so much for having us and giving us this forum.
Very well said, and thank you, ladies. Waithira Kabiru, Head of Media Futures, EABL, Faith Gachanja, who is a Women on Boards Network board member. This was very, very inspirational, I must say, and of course, it puts to task those that are tasked to ensure that we have this diversity and inclusion we're talking about come to reality. Well, this is the end of Your World this morning. We shall see you tomorrow, but hey, have a wonderful rest of this Wednesday. And Happy New Month, by the way.